That sounds good.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, welcome to another edition of a Hallway Hangout. We are here February 21st, 2023 to talk about Replay, which is a neat tool we are testing in the FSE Outreach Program. We have some lovely volunteers who've been using it. And yeah, we have Oliver here who's from the Replay team. Before we get started, let's do some quick intros, just get a sense of, let's see, name, maybe like loosely role, or if there's a team you're sponsored for or something around that. And then maybe like why you're interested in helping use Replay, which I think is pretty cool. And we have a new person, Jason. Great. Hey, Jason, we just got started and we're doing intros, so you didn't miss anything. Yeah. I'll kick it off and then I'll pass it off to some other folks. So I am Anne, I'm sponsored by Automatic. So kind of a split between the test and core team. And I spearhead the FSE Outreach Program, which is how I got connected with the Replay folks. And we kind of got started. So Oliver, I'll pass it off to you. We'll just do like a popcorn style.
Sure. Ollie or Oliver D. Albuquerque, sponsored by Replay. I've been in the WordPress community probably since 2017. I worked at Google for 6 years and worked on a bunch of different WordPress related partnerships, worked on Google's first WordPress plugin, which is called Sitekit, and a bunch of performance related work with engineering teams at Chrome and Google Search. And it's nice to meet folks on this side where I'm working for Replay, and excited to talk to you about it. Paul? Either Paul.
Okay, I will take it. Yeah, my name is Paul. I'm from Germany. I'm sponsored by myself, so I'm self-employed web developer, and I have some kind of passion for automation, and I was also building and leading a QA team back in the days. And Oliver, because you said you are involved in the community since 2017, I just looked it up, and 2016 I held a presentation in Nuremberg on a WordCamp about unit testing React. So back then,
Nice.
I already had some kind of interest in test automation. So I'm here just to see what's going on and what are the new tools and how it's like used by WordPress community. Yeah, I want to learn something new. I pass it to Jason.
Sure. So prior to Replay, I was tech lead for the Firefox debugger for 5 years at Mozilla. Prior to Mozilla, I was at Etsy for 5 years, which was at the time one of the largest PHP shops. In fact, they employed Rasmus, the creator of PHP. And while I don't have a WordPress store directly, I will say Etsy should get a lot of credit for PHP going from 6 to 7 back in the day. We scared the shit out of Rasmus by threatening to go to hack the Meta, the Facebook PHP version, and then he then got to work into PHP 7, which was pretty cool. So big fan of WordPress, big fan of PHP actually too. That's where I built my initial chops. I'm excited to talk Replay and collaborative debugging with all you.
Okay.
Other Paul.
Thank you. So this is Paul from Norway. Yeah. Or some people call me Pal because it's kind of spelled that way. That's fine. So I've been kind of helping out with the WordPress community for, I don't know, since 2016, 2017, very much more intensely since right before Gutenberg really started picking up. I've been, my focus is design, user interface, UX and things like that, and also a lot on testing. So I've been contributing to, that's been my focus last year, I would say a lot more testing. I was sponsored for a year from Automatic a few years ago. and that ended. I would like to become sponsored again from somebody and spend even more time on design, testing, and things like that, because it's been less contributing last year. So with testing, that's kind of like been a lot more main focus last year, because I can contribute, I can put everything I know aside and think more as a general user. I worked as a teacher earlier, so I can just start kind of going into the mind of a regular user and thinking of different features. So testing is great for that. I created a bunch of videos for my testing and also a lot of feedback. So yeah, when Replay came along and told me about that a while ago, I started using it and just kind of started to give feedback on that. I thought it was a really interesting tool to use. And I just kind of retested it again a few days ago, just to kind of see, refresh my mind to how it works. So I got a few different feedback I would like to give along the way today. So yeah,
Cool.
that's it.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Oliver, I feel like you can take it from here. I do want to give a special shout out to Paul, because he's answered every single one of the calls for testing for the outreach program. So I was really excited when you were like, yeah, I'll use Replay. I'm like, great. Because you give really good feedback and you're always good about recording videos. So yeah, Oliver, if you want to just jump on in, like we could just.
Yeah, and just to kind of give some context, and yeah, new tools are hard, and this is a new thing, and so we're excited to kind of see how we can figure out ways in which Replay can be useful across the WordPress project. My kind of sense from chatting with Anne and Josepha and the testing team is that there's kind of a lot of room for improvement in terms of just the general bug reporting scheme at WordPress at scale. There's a lot of kind of productivity that can be lost. There's a lot of challenges around different versions of WordPress, and it's so difficult to manage something like this at scale, to have a really perfect system. And with all that kind of back and forth of kind of reproducing issues, we wanted to kind of evaluate if Replay can help. And our current plan is to just kick off a small crew of volunteers who can kick the tires and just figure out if it's useful, figure out if it could even fit within WordPress's current bug reporting scheme. So that's kind of what we're doing today. Replay is actually free for all open source projects, so there's no cost, and it's I should say that as well for purposes of the recording. We're not really kind of emphasizing the use of it necessarily, but we want to see if it'll make a big difference to how the community reports bugs and maintainers resolve issues, and especially like before and after major releases. So with that, I'll just kind of run through some slides, then pass to Jason, who's just going to take folks on a quick tour of Replay and actually look into some, and maybe we can record a few together. And then, yeah, would love any kind of questions and feedback you have. And Paul, I know you mentioned test automation. That's top of mind for us and what we're working on. So actually, and I know that WordPress started using Playwright recently, so happy to spend some time talking about that too. Okay, can you see the slides here?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, Replay is a time travel debugger. We've built the kind of first time travel debugger for the modern web. It's just like a video in that you can pause and fast forward and rewind to any point in time, but we actually record the whole browser session. And we've built developer tools and other collaboration features like adding comments right into the product, so you can add breakpoints and do actual debugging retroactively. And that's where we get the name time travel, because you're actually going back in time to the original point in time of the recording to figure out what went wrong. This kind of diagram here in this slide, this is how you might think of, or how we might all be familiar with, just once you have an issue or a user reports an issue, what is the process to write out the steps to reproduce, to get it triaged to the right team, to get it investigated, to get someone to look at it, to find an actual reproducible version of it, to fix it, and then to kind of land the fix and deploy it into production. Replay is basically an artifact that allows you to bring together all these different functions that are either finding the bug or triaging the bug or reporting the bug, and bring it into sort of one single artifact that the developer can see and actually do something with to be able to fix it. So it's all kind of in one place. And that's really the main idea with Replay. The other element of this, not just in how you actually reproduce the issue, but debugging locally. There's so many steps that you take in terms of having to refresh and make a change and then go back again and make another change. And there's a huge amount of productivity that you get in terms of the difference between using Replay and actually just debugging locally as a regular, as you would regularly. So yeah, these are kind of a few slides that go through the UI, but it might be useful just to kind of hop into one. We recorded some TechCrunch replays just to kind of illustrate that, but maybe that might be a good way to just hop in. Jason, do you want? I have
Sounds
actually.
good.
I can put in the chat too, so we can look on together.
Oh, and I was planning on just recording a new one, if that's all right too.
Oh yeah, go
Why
for it.
not?
Yeah, why not?
So while I get set up, does anyone have any questions based on what Ali shared? Oh, and also Ali, can you stop sharing so I can start sharing?
Yeah.
The stuff I have is mainly like from Francisca about bugs, basically, or like the site editor loading really slowly, and like
Yeah,
which we can get into, but
totally.
Yeah.
And honestly, the reason we thought it would be a good idea to record TechCrunch is it's obviously a WordPress site, and these days it doesn't matter if it's like time.com or TechCrunch. There's so much client-side JavaScript interopting with WordPress through different plugins and then custom code that in of itself seemed interesting. But debugging a production site is very different than debugging the editor or debugging something in a local environment too. So this was us just guessing what would be interesting. We could easily take this in another direction and record other things as well. And in fact, I guess Paul, you have Replay set up, right? So you've made some recordings.
Are you talking to me or?
Paul from Norway.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've been using Replay. Back in my mind, I'm kind of thinking of questions to come up with later on. But yeah, I've been using Replay. I've been finding it really useful because I've been able to put in comments into the video saying, look at this area here. Notice the thing going on here, and I really liked how it's set up. There's a lot of things that can be improved, but I really like what I've seen.
Totally. This kind of thing. It might be nice to transition actually from this replay, which we can look at for a couple minutes, and then actually look at some of the replays that you've been recording, which would inevitably be a little bit more valuable.
Yeah, and if you have kind of a list of things, I think too, like we're happy to kind of talk through those.
Yeah, there's two that I can drop links to in the chat that
Francisca
mentioned, and then there's also an issue where she's trying to replicate it.
Oh, even better.
And Anne also mentioned that the slowness about using the site editor. That's what I also had with a bunch of my videos too. It's really slow to get started. And it didn't start where I wanted to start. It started kind of like with the browse mode, where you see the black area on the left side before it went into a template. Even if I was inside a template, it started outside.
So this is where Replay really shines. Because if you record a video, you can say, look, it started in browse mode, or look, it took a while. But then a developer has nothing to go off. They see that there's a problem, but there's nothing to debug in a video to see why it happened.
Are you saying that when you record it, Paul, that it's not recording where you want it to start recording? Is that what you're? Or...
Yeah, because the ones I initially created a while ago now, it seemed like almost all those videos started at the same spot.
Oh, then that's something that we should look into, because if our recorder is changing the behavior in any way, then that's a problem.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to test this a little bit later on today or something like that, and just
Sure.
kind of give you more feedback on that, and just kind of remind what's going on.
Yeah. What I was trying to say earlier is a lot of people use Replay to debug performance issues.
Right.
Because those can be incredibly difficult to reproduce. It's slow on my computer, but it's fast for you if you're in the US.
Well, I think what I've heard is that it's like if you're using Chrome or Firefox or Safari, it's like they're not able to replicate the speed issue, and then they'll go into Replay and it'll be like very slow. And I don't know if it's something specific to what we're doing in the site, or it seems like a browser specific interaction, since I know Replay is also a browser. I think there's something going on there, and I can't quite figure out, like, because I'll try to replicate in other browsers just to see what's going on. And I haven't been able to, but I have been able to see, it's just like the second you load it up, the site editor is way slower, which could be something to look into for our team anyway. But I mean, Replay is not a browser like Chrome is in that sense.
Oh, no. You shouldn't spend any time trying to figure out.
Yeah, have compatibility. Yeah.
Yeah, that's on us. And this is where you can file an issue for us to look into, and someone on our side can see what's going on and fix that.
Is it possible to have Replay actually as an extension in Chrome and Firefox and things like that?
We don't run as an extension, and I can show why. But Replay today on Mac is going to default to Firefox. On Linux, you can use Chrome. And I believe in a couple months or so, let's say May, the Replay browser should be built on top of Chrome. So there wouldn't be any Firefox or Chrome incompatibilities. You could choose either one. But to get back to what is possible in Replay, which is why you'd even do it in the first place, is a video. You can record something that looks off, leave those comments, maybe Loom style, but then the developer still has to figure out how to reproduce the problem. And what we have here is a replay that we just recorded of TechCrunch, and we have the console with all the logs, the elements panel, React DevTools, network monitor with all the network activity, all the API calls that were made. And what's really interesting in a time travel debugger is a developer can come in here, find a log that could be interesting. Maybe it's, I'm looking for something I saw last night. And if this is something that seems off, or maybe even init not defined, rewind to that spot and be at this point in the code. So now that I'm here, I can see that this init function truly was undefined. I can inspect what my FT is, and then begin debugging it from there with print statements, breakpoints, all of those things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like this is, I ran into an issue, I think previously where we were initially talking about this, where this would be huge to have in certain circumstances where we can't replicate things. And there is an issue that I just dropped. I didn't link to it. Yeah, I'll link to it, where this does come up from time to time, especially in this, like, kind of like you're talking about major releases, where there's different beta versions, there's different, some people's they're using trunk, some people are using like beta 2, some people with Gutenberg plugin installed, where there's all these different environments, and we're trying to quickly replicate things and solve issues quickly. So I think this is like a very opportune time to be using Replay in particular.
And one thing that's common in open source is that, sure, I'm using the same library, but then I have all of my other code as well. Okay, this happens for me the way I'm using it. Is this a problem of how I'm using the library, or is this a problem in the library itself?
Cool, thanks for putting that in the chat. And
should we switch over?
So in the chat is the first two recordings,
right,
separate from the one that you put in the GitHub link. And
yeah, so basically these two recordings, she wasn't able to make this call, but these 2 recordings are ones that she tried to make. And then it was for this specific issue, which I think is a pretty good one, because
I'm
we're
wondering
having a hard
now
time replicating it.
if I'll be able to view it. Did she add this to a specific team?
Let me see if I can. Yeah, it's under WordPress.
Okay.
Oh, it
Are
says
you
private.
a member of the WordPress team?
Yes.
Could you add me?
Yes. Let me. What is your? Is it? Oh, don't tell me.
It's-
I can find it. Hold on.
It's simple. It's jason@replay.io.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the advantages of starting early. You get to claim the good emails.
One feedback I just kind of noticed right before the call is that I'll create a video, but I'm not sure if I want to save it or not. I just want to view it before I choose to discard or save it, because it might have what I need and it might not. If I save it and look at it and say, no, it doesn't have to, it doesn't have what I need, I'll have to delete it. But if I'm able to just kind of preview it, say, okay, it's got what I need, I'll just save it and call it whatever I want to call it.
That's a great point. We should make that easier. What I do is I usually start with the replay in my library, and if it's good, then I promote it to the team library, the replay team library.
Right.
But that's a hack that I've come up with, and we should make that a little bit easier.
Maybe you could show that, how you do that, Jason.
Sure. And have you invited me? I can check my email.
I've invited you. I'm also just going to make them public.
Sure.
Just
There's
to,
no reason
I'm
not
like,
to.
let's just switch it over.
Yeah. All
So
right.
yeah, they should be public now.
And I'm also a member of the WordPress team, which is great.
I just made a test on my other screen here. I was inside the site editor in the nav bar, and when I start recording, it just kind of is really slow to get going. So it kind of spends, let's see, it takes about 12, 13 seconds before I suddenly am able to, for instance, see the nav bar, the header area.
Yeah.
It's kind of spins for a while first.
Yeah, that's something that we should fix. We record far more complicated sites. Facebook.com is fine. We work with a bunch of the online editors for mobile app builders, website builders. I don't want to say the site builder is simpler, but when we have had performance issues in the past, we've been able to look into them and figure them out pretty quickly.
Okay, so Paul, I saw the link that you dropped in, and I can play it right away. Maybe we can go to Paul's replay.
Okay.
That's
yeah, the way I interpret it is actually probably a performance issue while recording and not replaying.
Yeah, because it has to do when I start the video. It's kind of it takes a little while for it to get going, and that's what I tested right now. It's kind of similar to what I did earlier. It just kind of takes a few moments before it really gets into it.
So maybe by second 11 you have the banner, but then the whole point is when you start recording, it should show up around here, like second 2 or second 3, right?
Yeah.
So the banner should be visible here, but it comes in around. Is this the banner you're referring to?
Yeah. No, header.
Sorry.
Yeah. I was saying banner header, top area. Because I was showing basically a bug where clicking the plus sign in the social link block opened up the Moodle kind of halfway outside the screen.
Yeah, that's right.
Paul, I know do you have a hard stop at the 30 mark? I wonder, given your interest in test automation, there's a couple things I do want to make sure we cover in this session, but
yeah. What I was beginning to do, by the way, which we don't have to do right now, is use the elements panel to inspect the header and then see what rendered it. Was this coming from JavaScript that was rendering the header, or was this some server side? Because if it's server side, it should have rendered with the rest of the content up front. But that's something I can do offline and see if the problem is coming from network latency in the browser or more JavaScript dependent. My instinct is always just, can we fix or at least understand the problem right now? But I'll file this as an issue for the runtime team, the browser team. And because I assume they can come back to this editor and try to reproduce the problem, it should be fairly easy to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, and I can send you kind of like the environment that would be used. And
Perfect.
there's even like test sites you can spin up pretty easily using a tool that we also use in the outreach program called InstaWP. So we can kind of get that.
Amazing.
Because I think that's a big, from what I've heard from a couple of folks, it's not a blocker per se, but it's definitely like a drag in recording these.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, that shouldn't exist. And yeah, here's the React code that's rendering the block editor. It's minified, which is a little bit of a shame, but there are ways to include source maps as well in production too. So it'd be easier to see the React component that's responsible for rendering this block editor. All right, Ollie, you were going to switch over to Playwright, right?
Yeah, and Paul Vincent, yeah, maybe be interested to hear a little bit about what you've been up to lately on the test automation side, and we can give you a bit of a preview into what we're building and bringing Replay's time travel debugger into CI so that you can debug test failures. And we're happy to spend a few minutes on that if it's useful.
Yeah, I saw, I think I saw also some things about it on your website, and this was very interesting. I was building like, let's say, normal end-to-end test automation for software products in the browser. And yeah, with all the, let's say, challenges which comes with it. Yeah.
Are you using a particular test runner, or is this something you've been doing recently? And
I was using Codecept.js all the time as a meta framework, and then as a driver we used WebDriver IO. At this time, Playwright was coming up, but it was still like a little bit early, and there was also some features we used in the test which wasn't supported by Playwright at the time. For example, iframes and stuff. So there were some no-goes. And yeah, now I would try to use that engine if possible, for sure. I think they made big steps in the last year, so.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I would be excited if you can say one or two things about what you have in mind or what you're working on with Replay and CI.
Sure. Jason, do you want to share a little bit?
Happy to. And Paul from Norway, I'd like to hear your experience with test automation as well.
When you say that, what do you think then? Because that's me, it's just a term. Oh,
I'm curious if what you've been doing on the testing side lately.
Well, I just kind of made a video yesterday, just kind of go through Replay, just kind of see how it works now compared to how I used it in the beginning.
Okay.
So I'm not really sure what you're looking for.
Oh, for some reason, I thought I heard you say that you're using Playwright and some other.
No, that was probably the other Paul.
I got my Paul switched up. Okay.
Paul from Germany.
Yes. Munich.
Yeah.
So sure. So this is what a replay would look like if we're recording a Cypress test. I don't have a great example of a Playwright test, except our own Playwright tests. So if I switch over here, or actually over here, we can see one of our Playwright tests has a lot locators. But you can continue to play the video as well and see where you are in the test. That's all being automated and recorded. The interesting thing, though, if I switch back to this test, is there's actually a failure too. Clicking here doesn't do anything. You would expect clicking this toolbar button to expand the panel, but it's inert, nothing happens. And so what we can do, because we have a time travel debugger, is find the component responsible for this element, and then go in and find the function handling that click, add a print statement, and rewind to exactly that spot when the click happened in the first place. And we can see, okay, that click landed in JavaScript, it went into this function, and now I can begin to debug what it's doing wrong. Where did it fail? So I can see, okay, this function handle button click was called, and we went through the code. And we even called toggle panel, but nothing happened. The toggle panel function clearly didn't open the panel. And this is not a canned demo. This is me looking at it with you for the first time. So I'm not going to go any further into what is happening in toggle panel to cause the issue to happen. But this is just an example of how you can write your Playwright tests or your Cypress tests or your WebDriver tests, doesn't really matter. And if you record them with replay and there happens to be this intermittent issue that happens 1% of the time, 5% of the time, 10% of the time, you can debug it with replay and see what's going wrong at that point in time. So it's helped us catch 10, 20. It's embarrassing how many of these little racy issues that you can add that make browser tests difficult to understand, but it's helped us fix 10, 20, hundreds of these guys.
Have you seen the effort to migrate a bunch of end-to-end tests to Playwright?
Yes.
Just in the project? I just dropped a link, but yeah, I wanted to call that out because there's some, okay, great. There's just some folks who are working on that too, where that might be another interesting
We'd love
use case.
Yeah,
we've been talking, I was talking to Brian Alexander a little bit about this, and
Great.
Once our Playwright integration is in a good spot, we can definitely even start recording WordPress tests in Playwright. But yeah, I think this would be another great use case, and we'd love to work with the team on it.
Yeah, I bet there's a lot of, someone was just asking about this stuff like this week in a different channel. So, and we do have a lot of end-to-end failures from time to time, which is wildly frustrating and flaky tests. So like the more we could kind of, it'd be neat if there was like an automatic like way to, you know, flaky test opens up like a GitHub issue and then a replay is boom, added on, and then someone can come in and fix that up. It'd be really cool.
Yeah, that's where we've got.
Yeah. And it's just as simple, because we're the browser, it's as simple as kind of like configuring Playwright to use replay as a browser, just like you would Chrome as the thanks bolt. Yeah, so and then anytime there's a failure or anytime the test passed, you have all the recordings in whether it's GitHub or whatever.
And the GitHub app makes it easy to create a comment in the pull request or create a new issue in the repo and just drop that replay link.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
I was just looking at the UI right now because everything is kind of like a tabbed area, tabbed area, tabbed area. I'm kind of missing having an X where I can close this specific tab for either code or something like that. And because on the left side, you can really open it up and you can close it. Seem like similar way you click it on the side to open and close.
Can you share your screen?
Yes. Let's see if I can. Let's see. Okay. So right here, for me, this seemed like a tabbed area. I was having I think some code open here and I have to close it or something like that. Yeah. And now I'm kind of looking into closing this area here. So I'm just kind of clicking on the side, trying to figure out where I close this area.
Sure.
start to kind of drag here. Can I close it like this? And then because there's no X up here to close it.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And
There is a way to do it, but we make it very, very hidden.
yeah, and then when I click Docs, for instance, it doesn't open a new tab.
Sure.
It could contain the standard icon that signals that it opens a new tab. So when I went back here, it kind of went back to the standard screen here of having the comments and then the main content here.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's what I'm kind of looking at. Just when those different tabs open up on the side here, that they should be easy to close them and kind of go back to default view, say it that way.
Yeah. So at the top right, we have the viewer DevTools toggle. So if you're ever in, there's the viewer DevTools button.
DevTools, yeah.
So if you ever want to just see the viewer, you can always click the viewer button, which is good.
Right.
But if you want to hide the code editor and still have the console or the elements panel, that's also a possibility. But we've made that really hidden.
Yeah, because I think I opened something on the side here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, I haven't really explored everything around here. And I kind of like this because I haven't used it yet, but I know from last time I wanted to cut out everything before it really started.
Sure.
To have a smaller video. And here it seems like I'm just gonna drag it into the kind of like the main pieces of the video I want to share or something like that.
Totally.
And then probably just kind of cut it, click save or something like that, and just kind of cut this first part out.
What you'll see is that the first part will be dotted. Right. And that will signal that part of the video that's dotted is not debuggable.
Okay.
We'll be adding another feature soon, which I think is what you're referring to, where you can actually trim the video, right, or crop to just that subsection too, which would be really nice.
Oh, okay. I understand.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, I'll just stop.
This is really good product feedback.
Okay. Yeah, because I looked at this, and because I haven't looked at much, I'll just kind of looked at. I recognize some of the UI from other elements, right?
Yeah.
From other programs. I think that and say, how does a tab many times work? How do these elements work in other programs?
This is fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to plug our Discord channel and our GitHub, so you can file really good issues for us too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll write down some notes.
Sure.
Yeah. I'll do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is our Discord invite too. Yeah, so just and we'll look at these couple slow replays and dig into why you're having trouble just recording the WordPress site editor, what's causing like the slowness there, and then maybe we can try and reproduce the issue. This 48059, if that's like a good example of, this is a live issue we've got, like I would love to be able to reproduce it in replay and actually fix it. I feel like we can, usually it takes a few examples. Once you get one or two examples of, I recorded it, I captured it in replay, I figured out what went wrong, then it's like, that becomes like a nice illustration for everyone as more issues come in. So maybe we'll take this one and try and, if there's a way we can spin up an instance.
Oh yeah, we can definitely do that.
Okay.
I'll drop you a link following up after this that will basically create a site with we're right now in the release cycle. Oh wait, today, it's gonna be 6.2 beta 3 today. We've been using beta 2. So we can test with beta 3. Because I think that would be a good one. I think it might be related to a popover issue, but one of the things that I'm curious about with some of these where it's hard to replicate, it's like, what if Replay doesn't capture it? So like if you could replicate it in a different browser, but then you try to open up Replay and it doesn't work. So I'm curious. I think from what Francisco was saying to me, she was able to replicate it, but just was having a hard time with like the site editor loading. So investigating that's going to be huge because that's the site editor and everything around it is basically where we're going with like a lot of the future of WordPress and a lot of what the work has been done the last couple of years. So the easiest we can make that.
If we make that web app the thing that we can record, then it's like, yeah, that's the most surface area for issues that might come
Yeah.
up and ways to actually use replay. Okay, that
Do you
sounds good.
mind dropping the GitHub link for you all? I just want to include that in the notes for anyone who didn't make it as well. I just saw you drop the Discord, but
Oh yeah, like
the
what
link
do
to
you
your GitHub repo for replay.
Oh yeah, of course, definitely.
I'm sure I actually probably can Google it if it's public.
We can send it to you. Yeah.
Yeah,
if,
that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll send it to you in Slack after.
I have to drop off, but thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for joining, Jason.
Good to see you again. Good meeting you, Paul.
We can probably wrap up. I don't know, Paul, do
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
anything else you wanted to go through, or?
Sounds good.
No, I kind of basically shared some of my UI thoughts, and either I can just add them as GitHub issues, or I can just add them into the Discord channel, or maybe I'll even add a video or something like that, just kind of going through what I noticed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be
great.
awesome.
But yeah, and
Um,
I like this as being a good next step. Is like this is a great example. This 48059 issue. Let's make sure we can reproduce it. If there are performance issues with using replay to load up to actually record or replay, then we can like file issues on our end and just have a look. We've had a few kind of our like larger customers who we've done some like performance optimizations just so it works really well on that site. So yeah, we can do that as a next step and hopefully like get it in a like good condition so that other people can use it. And then in the replays we create, we're able to reproduce the issue. We can do a little, drop some comments that leave a bit of a tour for people, like, oh, this is where the issue was, or here's where I can see the version of WordPress that it's on. Like we see that it's in beta 6 or whatever. Like some of the things that people filing issues or someone debugging it would be trying to find.
yeah,
and
servicing
that might be
that, it's basically like beta version, RC version, depending on what the cycle, and then like, are they using Gutenberg? Like that information would be boom, 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 like pretty critical.
Totally.
I think having an environment, because I'm just using one of my test sites basically, and should there be some kind of spun up an environment for this, and that where you kind of use replay even tighter to a specific environment or site or something like that?
I kind of like it being open-ended because we want different environments. So I think how you're doing it's great.
Okay.
Yeah. Totally.
For calls for testing, we need it a bit more focused because otherwise it could be like a nightmare.
Yeah.
But as you well know, but yeah, I think for this kind of stuff with replay, I think part of the beauty of having people across the community using it in different ways is that we can kind of get different environments going because we can see the environment. If that's like, I think taking advantage of replay's power.
So many of my customers, like they use their local, they spin up their local version of the site that they're going to debug with, and they'll record issues there actually. So there's like all these different people are like recording in various different ways. If they prefer debugging in their local environment, then they record there. If it's an issue that came in from like something in production, and they just record the website. And
Sweet.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks so much, Anne, for recording and making time and just putting this together. And sounds like a couple good.
I'll quickly, just to close up, in case anyone's watching this and they want to join this effort of testing replay and want access to what we're doing, there's a post where you can comment, and we can have as many volunteers as you'd like. So if anyone's watching this and wants to join in, there's this post seeking volunteers to use replay. I'm also at Anzazu on the WordPress Slack, so you can reach out there, and I'd be happy to add you, and we can kind of keep this fun going. So thanks everyone for joining, and I'll write notes on the Make Test site. All right, cool.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Have a good one, y'all.
See you.
See you.
Bye. Good to see you too.